We do not stand still and are developing for you, so we bring to your attention a new voice and a new story.
Here's something unusual I need to share, even though it might sound utterly preposterous. Despite everyone treating me like a dreadful villain, I feel compelled to explain my side of things because it's driving me mad. I'm Claire, aged 51, and prior to 3 months ago, I believed I had an ideal life, truly perfect. 33 years of marriage to the same man, wonderful adult children who've embarked on their own journeys, a good house in a pleasant neighborhood, the classic suburban idol. Our youngest gifted my husband an Ancestry DNA kit for his birthday, and we thought it would be enjoyable to do it as a family. You know how those tests go: uncover your Irish roots or discover unknown relatives. Just innocent family bonding time, correct? Sadly, not at all. To provide some background on our family dynamic, my husband has always been reserved. Now, let me delve into the shocking revelations we discovered from that DNA test. A man who follows a routine of work, home, and television, avoiding drama. At times, it felt like living with a stationary object, but stability is desirable, isn't it? However, there were instances over the years where I felt I was handling most of the emotional labor in our relationship, arranging family events, maintaining our social schedule, ensuring we projected a harmonious image. He seemed content to sail along while I kept everything running smoothly. We have 3 wonderful children, 2 daughters aged 29 and 26, and a son who recently turned 22. They are city dwellers pursuing their careers, with the girls favoring their father historically, something that used to mildly irritate me. I've been managing all aspects of their school lives, dealing with friend issues, you name it, yet he's hailed as the entertaining parent who reaps the credit. Oh well, that's water under the bridge now. Moving on, we embarked on a family project by conducting DNA tests, expecting a delightful experience. My husband, in particular, was eager because he never knew his biological father. His mother remarried when he was young, and that man has always been his perceived dad. He hoped the test would provide insights into his family's genetic makeup. Adorable thought, right? If only we had foreseen the turmoil ahead, those test kits would have ended up in the trash. The results took approximately 6 weeks to arrive, and our children received theirs first. They were huddled around one of their computers in our living room, discussing their findings and chuckling about diverse percentages of various ethnicities. I was in the kitchen preparing dinner, vaguely tuned into their conversation, when suddenly it fell silent. Utter quietness, and then I sensed danger. Upon entering the living room, all 3 were fixed on the computer screen with peculiar expressions. My gut churned as their furtive glances indicated a secret they shouldn't possess. My eldest daughter gazed at me with an unfamiliar expression, like she was encountering me for the first time, and found me unpalatable. It was then she disclosed it to me. The DNA test results revealed that she and her sister shared no genetic link with their father, none whatsoever, no DNA in common whatsoever. Our son's results were a perfect match, but not theirs. They might as well be total strangers according to those findings. I felt the ground disappear beneath me, and the world began spinning, making it hard for me to breathe properly. All I could think was that this shouldn't have occurred. This wasn't supposed to unfold this way. We were expecting an exciting discovery about our ancestry, not a catastrophe brought upon us by a reckless test that no one should have taken in the first place. The children stared at me, anticipating some sort of explanation, and I stood there speechless with my jaw dropped. What was I supposed to say? How does one explain something so inconceivable? So, I did what any reasonable person might do. I shouted and dashed to my room, locking the door behind me. You may think it strange, but consider that I was in a state of utter disbelief. This was intended as our casual family science project, not a reenactment of a daytime talk show drama. I needed time to gather my thoughts, to find a way to manage this situation without causing irreparable damage to what we'd constructed as a family. Because the truth is, nobody seems to grasp it. I never desired harm to come to anyone through this. Ever. For 2 grueling hours, I was confined to that bedroom, and Let me emphasize, those were the most prolonged hours of my existence. I persistently wished I'd misheard. Perhaps there was an error in the test results, or maybe this was just a terrible nightmare I would soon awaken from. However, deep within, I recognized the implications of these results and braced myself for the confession of something I thought I'd never have to address again. As I struggled not to panic on my bed, thoughts ran through my mind about the unjustness of this predicament. Why now? After years of a harmonious family life and a fulfilling marriage, why did this truth need to surface? No one was harmed by our ignorance. The girls adore their father. He cherishes them. We've been content. So why ruin it all over something that occurred when I was barely 30? But I could hear their voices in the living room, and I knew there was no escaping this revelation. Despite my inner yearning to vanish, I decided to disclose everything truthfully. Instead, I opened the door and stepped out, finding all four of them huddled around the kitchen table, as though preparing for a funeral. My spouse wore an unfamiliar expression, not anger per se, but rather vacant, as if informed that every fact he held about his life was false. Quite accurately, that's precisely what had transpired. I seated myself at the table and inhaled deeply. There was no easy way to proceed, so I simply began speaking. I revealed details about Marcus, a former neighbor who once resided 3 houses from us when we first settled in this neighborhood. He was kind, amiable, the type of neighbor who'd assist with moving furniture or jumpstart your car if necessary. He and my spouse had a good relationship, often socializing in the garage on projects or watching games together. Typical guy activities. The affair began approximately 4 years into our marriage. I can't precisely recall how it started. Gradually, one event led to another, and before I realized it, we were meeting whenever there was time for privacy. My spouse worked long hours during that period, aiming to build his career while I was home with a toddler, feeling isolated and lonely. Marcus simply became available and attentive at a time when I needed it. The affair continued for 4 years, hiding, making excuses, leading a double life that eventually felt somewhat routine. During that period, we had 2 children, and yes, I was aware there might be a chance they weren't my spouse's biological offspring, but I also knew there was a possibility they were. I wasn't maintaining a calendar or any such scientific pursuit. I was simply living my life and crossing my fingers for the best. The relationship concluded when Marcus received a job relocation and departed the country. No melodramatic goodbye, no tearful farewell, he merely left. That was it. I perceived it as a hint to concentrate on my marriage and family, so that's exactly what I did. I devoted myself wholeheartedly to being an exceptional wife and mother. And truthfully, I believe I achieved that goal. We enjoyed many prosperous years following that period, remarkably good years. I never disclosed this secret to anyone as it seemed pointless. Marcus was gone, the chapter closed. However, bringing it up would have caused unnecessary pain. My husband didn't need to know. My daughters didn't need to know. No one needed to know. Certain things are best left undiscovered, isn't that right? Yet here I was, seated at the kitchen table with them all gazing at me, forced to clarify everything. In front of me, my spouse's face transformed as he came to terms with the truth that 2 daughters he had nurtured since birth, 2 individuals he held closest to his heart, were not biologically his own. I witnessed my daughters grapple with the fact that the man they had always called dad was not their true father. As I spoke, I continually underscored the depth of my affection for each member of our family, insisting that the affair's significance paled in comparison to our bond. I reminisced about all the joyous years we spent together, all the precious moments we created, all the love that flowed between us. These experiences were authentic and valuable despite the biological test results. I also brought up the fact that Marcus had passed away a few years earlier, ensuring the girls that this revelation wouldn't stir up any complications by bringing him back into their lives. That aspect of our story was concluded. Throughout my discourse, my husband remained silent. The children were sobbing, our son seemed stunned, and it felt like I was conversing with unfamiliar individuals instead of my own kin. By the time I concluded my explanation, I too was in tears, pleading for them to grasp that this didn't alter my affection for them or the quality of our shared life. However, their expressions revealed that they perceived the situation as already transformed. After conveying everything, the room remained eerily silent. No one knew how to respond. No one had words, and frankly, I was growing increasingly annoyed with everyone's reaction as if this were the apocalypse. My spouse eventually broke the silence, his voice altered, dull and frosty in a way I had never heard before. He questioned whether I was certain the girls weren't his, to which I had to clarify that, based on the DNA results, I was positive. He inquired about the duration I had harbored my suspicions, to which I confessed that I had long been aware it could be true, but wished it didn't matter. This revelation seemed to set him off. Instead of shouting or yelling, which might have made it easier to handle, he exhibited a quiet rage that was much more alarming. He started interrogating me about the chronology, demanding details on certain dates and occurrences, aiming to pinpoint precisely when everything unfolded and how long I'd been concealing the truth from him. I believe in this instance his accusations were unjust, as I was not deceiving him per se. Instead, I chose not to disclose information that needlessly caused pain. There's a distinction between intentionally misleading someone and merely withholding harmful information. Was I expected to sit him down and disclose that potentially 2 of our children might not be biologically his, just casually? Such a revelation would have been unkind. The girls exchanged glances between me and their father, their expressions betraying confusion. My eldest daughter inquired if I ever intended to reveal the truth, and I reasoned that I saw no need to disturb our contentment over an event from so long ago. Her countenance changed, seeming to suggest I was being self-centered, which stung deeply because all my actions were geared towards safeguarding this family. Our son remained silent, his demeanor conveying discomfort, as he was the only one who was certainly his father's biological offspring. I attempted to console him, stating that our feelings towards his sisters remained unaltered despite the recent revelation, emphasizing that biology doesn't dictate love. However, he appeared quite distressed over the situation. The most challenging aspect was observing my spouse's reaction. He persistently inquired about Marcus, delved into our relationship dynamics, and questioned why I had remained with him for 4 years if it held no significance. I endeavored to clarify that the situation was intricate, that I was young, perplexed, and grappling with marital difficulties at the time, but he showed little interest in understanding the context or the factors leading to this predicament. He also repeatedly focused on the chronology, striving to ascertain the precise conception timeline of each sister, pondering if there was any likelihood they could be his biological offspring. I found myself needing to repeatedly clarify that, according to the DNA results, such a possibility was non-existent, and his despair grew more apparent with each confirmation. Later, he began questioning me about other matters, probing if there were additional affairs, suggesting that aspects of our marriage might be false, and casting doubt on the truthfulness of anything I'd ever shared with him. This prompted me to defend myself, as I felt he was implying I was a serial adulterer or habitual liar, despite this being a single incident from years past that I handled as best as I knew how at the time. I reminded him of our many years together filled with love and loyalty, of my dedication as a wife and mother, and of the countless times I prioritized our family. I shared with him how I ended the affair on my own when I understood what truly mattered to me. I clarified that keeping this secret was about safeguarding everyone, not deceiving or manipulating. However, he failed to acknowledge any of it, persistently viewing everything positive in our marriage as somehow tainted. After 33 years of shared life, a single event from our early married days cast doubt, yet the girls tried to affirm that their love for him remained unchanged, reinforcing their bond. I appreciated this rationality amidst the chaos. However, it appeared his feelings were beyond comprehension, even with their comfort. Eventually, he asked me to leave temporarily, presumably to ponder. This request came after decades of matrimony, implying I should vacate and find solace elsewhere because he struggled to accept a truth from our pre-cell phone era. Inquiring about the duration, he was uncertain. When I proposed discussing this in counseling, his response was tentative for the future, but not immediate. I inquired about what I should disclose to others regarding my sudden move to my sister's house, only to be told it was my issue to resolve. Consequently, at 10 p.m., I loaded a suitcase into my car and drove across town to my sister's, trying to justify my husband's expulsion from our home due to an incident dating back several decades. The entire experience felt unreal and grossly unfair. Living with Beth has been wretched, and truthfully, I'm growing weary of being the only one blamed in this situation. Beth seems to cast disapproving looks at me, a stance that strikes me as hypocritical, given her history of multiple divorces and short-lived relationships. However, my husband's behavior during this ordeal has been the most distressing. I have made numerous attempts to reach him, calls, texts, even showing up at his house, yet he treats me like a stranger he wishes to avoid. Whenever I finally get through to speak with him, his demeanor is icy and distant, implying that everything I say is an attempt at manipulation. What adds to my frustration is the collective reaction as if our past affair was a continuous betrayal rather than something that concluded decades ago. For nearly 3 decades, I have remained faithful to my husband since Marcus left, yet it seems this loyalty holds no weight because of an event that transpired when I was barely out of my 20s. It appears that the length of time I've been faithful means nothing due to a past with Marcus. Furthermore, people portray my husband back then as an ideal victim, but the reality is he seldom made time for us during our early years of marriage. He consistently worked late, always arriving home exhausted, and his attention was often divided by stress and work, making it difficult to attend to my needs as his wife. For nearly all those years, I was alone at home with a toddler, experiencing loneliness and feeling unappreciated. However, when Marcus acknowledged me and made me feel significant, it felt like the recognition I had long been denied. I'm not condoning the affair, but circumstances play a crucial role. I wasn't just a married woman playing around. I was a woman yearning for emotional connection in a marriage that failed to fulfill my needs. The longevity of the affair, spanning 4 years, should serve as an indication of my neglected feelings within the marital relationship at that time. Yet, whenever I try to elucidate this background to others, they perceive it as making excuses rather than offering valuable context for my actions. My sister persistently urges me to take responsibility for my actions. But what does that entail? I ended the affair, I refocused on my family, I've been a responsible wife and mother for 3 decades since then. Can I be any more accountable than this? It's infuriating to see my spouse garner sympathy from everyone while I'm ostracized. Instead of extending their support to me, our friends are contacting him, offering emotional solace, bringing food and helping with chores. On the other hand, I've taken refuge at my sister's place, being judged by acquaintances who lack understanding of a long-term union's complexities. He's also meeting with therapists individually, which seems like an evasion tactic to address our issues together. Each time I propose couples therapy, he claims he's not prepared yet and wishes to handle his emotions independently first. Yet, the question remains, for how long will this last? It's been 3 months now, and instead of moving towards reconciliation, it appears he is growing further apart. Despite tirelessly attempting various solutions, my husband seems resolved to remain ensnared in his anger rather than progressing as a mature individual for the sake of our marriage. It appears he values playing the role of the victim over preserving our union. Frankly, this behavior is causing me to question whether I am truly married to the man I believed I wed. Recently, I proposed we attend joint marriage counseling, and he expressed his reluctance. I offered to pen a letter detailing my perspective for him to read at his convenience, but he declined this too. I also contacted our pastor, hoping he might mediate our conversation, but my husband expressed gratitude for the offer, yet requested more time for contemplation. How long does one individual need to contemplate a matter? Here we are dealing with old history dating back to decades, not a dynamic circumstance that requires constant resolution. The situation is resolved. Marcus has passed away. Our children, who cherish their father regardless of genetics, are grown, and we have a valuable life together that needs protection. However, it seems that his desire for revenge against me for something beyond my control overshadows all of this. The most distressing aspect is how he's been managing the situation with our social circle. The news of our separation has leaked because people tend to notice when a married couple ceases to appear together in public, and the way he's portraying our circumstances makes me appear monstrous. I learned from Beth that he told our neighbor Karen the entire story, which has led to her casting judgmental glances at me as I drive through the neighborhood. He also apparently shared everything with his brother, causing his entire family to treat me differently. His sister used to frequently text me, but now I'm fortunate if I receive a response when I reach out to her. Instead of attempting to address our issues privately like mature spouses would, it appears as though he's strategically alienating everyone towards me. This situation has put a strain on our children, who are growing weary of the ongoing conflict. Last week, my youngest even suggested that I should give him some space due to his trust issues. Trust issues after 3 decades of loyalty following a single mistake from my youth. The thing that really bothers me is watching him flourish without me. He's not just doing well, he seems to be thriving. He's shed weight, become more social, picked up new activities, and our mutual friends report that he's never been as carefree and contented as he is now. Contrary to his claims of being devastated and needing time to heal, it seems he's doing quite well without me. It seems as if this predicament serves as a pretext for him to dissolve our marriage, absolving himself of any accountability regarding our marital issues. Truth be told, our union has been far from ideal for quite some time now. We've maintained a superficial facade of matrimony, more like cohabiting roommates than husband and wife, and it appears that the DNA test issue merely served as an opportunity to dismantle everything rather than exert the necessary effort to rekindle our bond. Now, 6 months have passed since this ordeal began, and I must admit the current state of affairs is far from what I anticipated or deserved. My spouse initiated divorce proceedings 3 months ago, and it appears he had a well-thought-out plan that I underestimated. In fact, his supposed need for contemplation seems to have been utilized to liaise with legal experts and financial advisors, ultimately devising a strategy to severely undermine me. The divorce process has been grueling, and the hardship is not confined to just the monetary aspect. He employed a ruthless lawyer who delved into each facet of our marriage with the intention of portraying me as a deceitful, manipulative individual unworthy of trust. They've asked for banking records, phone logs, social media history, and every other piece of information they could think of to construct a case that I've been less than truthful about various matters. Remarkably, they unearthed some facts. There were no infidelities involved, as I've remained loyal since Marcus, but there were minor oversights. For instance, I once opened a credit card without immediately informing him, and also lied about going to lunch with friends when I was actually shopping alone on a few occasions. Ordinary actions that most married couples engage in, yet now they are being utilized as evidence of my inherent deceit. The most distressing aspect is the way our children have responded to this ordeal. Initially, they aimed to remain impartial and maintain ties with both parties, yet as the divorce revelations unfolded, they've distanced themselves from me. My eldest child even conveyed her dissatisfaction with my handling of the situation, stating I should have been more truthful from the start. However, my viewpoint seems inconsequential to everyone involved. Even Beth has been commenting about the need for me to acknowledge my errors and assume responsibility for the outcomes of my actions. It's simple for her to say so, given she's never experienced the intricacies of a complex marriage or had to make tough choices regarding confidentiality. The maddening aspect lies in observing how everyone has been treating my spouse throughout this entire process. He has received an abundance of compassion and backing as though he's some sort of saint who was married to a monster for 33 years. For months, I have been excluded from our social circle as he receives meals, invitations, and wellness checks while I'm sidelined. Last month, I learned he has been dating someone new, a woman from his hiking group. Upon questioning him about it, he responded that his personal life was off limits to me because we were still legally separated. However, the divorce is yet to be finalized, and here he is moving on without giving any consideration to our long marriage. Inevitably, she's younger than me, presumably unmarried with no children. From what I gather, she finds his new beginning after deception narrative incredibly captivating. Unbeknownst to her, she has no idea of the true challenges that come with a lifelong marriage, such as raising children, managing a household, and maintaining a relationship through life's hardships. 2 weeks past at a grocery store, I spotted him with his fresh partner, chuckling and intertwined as adolescents, exuding happiness unseen in him for years. Upon noticing me, he was there too, and for a fleeting moment our eyes met over the produce section. I presumed to see some sign of recognition, an acceptance of our shared past, a trace of sorrow about the turn of events. Instead, he seemed to gaze straight through me as if I were a perfect stranger, returning his attention to his girlfriend and saying something amusing. It was then the reality struck me. This wasn't just the end of the marriage, but the finality of any hope for salvaging anything meaningful from 33 years of constructing a life together. He had discarded me, effaced me from his narrative, and carried on as if I hadn't meant anything to him whatsoever. In that grocery store, observing my spouse embark on a fresh phase of life with an individual unaware of our shared past, I recognized the possibility of my previous judgments being flawed. Perhaps the affair held more significance than initially perceived. Maybe our years-long silence about it was a deeper deceit than previously imagined. However, despite the current turn of events, I remain uncertain about what alternative actions I could have taken. I still maintain that shielding those we care for may involve concealing hurtful truths. I continue to believe that 30 years of loyal matrimony should hold some value, even when constructed on an imperfect foundation. Regrettably, it appears that this no longer carries weight. As I attempted to safeguard everyone from the truth, he was finding solace in another's notion of honesty. Now it falls upon me to bear the outcomes of decisions I took at a time when I lacked understanding of their future repercussions, decades hence.